Live right now. Hello. I'm not too sure who's on here just yet. If I had my laptop open, we'd be able to do things better. Let me go to comment. So usually end up with about 25, 30 people on the stream that end up watching it.
Cool.
I don't think we have anybody yet. They're probably like, where the hell are they?
Yeah. Well, people should be
So now on all your
excited.
trips.
They'll have
What's
your
that?
birds. Your birds and my birds will both be yelling at each other.
Yeah, the crazy bird people. Yep. So now, how many times have you gone down to like Peru and stuff and collected fish?
I have never been to Peru. Just
Oh,
Brazil.
I thought you went down there. Oh, Brazil?
No, Brazil. Yep.
I didn't think you could collect fish in Brazil.
You cannot collect fish in Brazil. We actually we're a completely volunteer run nonprofit that works to enable the local communities to collect fish to sell as a source of sustainable livelihood. So it's not it's not gringos collecting fish. It's the Brazilian communities collecting fish for the betterment of their economy and our enjoyment.
Gotcha. I always thought though when Project Piaba went, I thought when you guys did the tours, you guys went down there and like collected fish along the way for fun.
No, we will collect them and take photographs of them and put them right back in the river because it's actually not legal to collect them for people who are not Brazilians.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I knew Brazil was shut off. I know Peru.
Yeah, there are a couple people who do trips to other countries, Peru, Colombia, places like that, but not Brazil.
Okay, so Brazil must have a lot more fish that we've never seen, right?
Oh yeah,
Up here?
You wouldn't believe it. There are so many. So there's about 250 species of fish that are commonly exported, and that made Brazil's whitelist when they made the whitelist in the 90s. And so those were for since the 90s were the only fish that were exported. So, but there's things in every river, every tributary that are just like mind-blowingly beautiful that have never been in the aquarium fish trade, and that even if they are, they're only like bycatch, and are very rarely seen, or people see them and they don't know what they are. So
really,
there's a lot of new and different fish, and actually a lot of them are in the process of still being described. So, for example, with Munchausia, that's a genus of fish that has now I think 94 described species. There's going to be easily hundreds in the next 10 years, just because they keep finding more and different different fish and splitting them and doing the taxonomy on them. So many new things are going to come out of Brazil in the next couple of years.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So I'm sure there's gonna be a lot.
They're all beautiful too.
I'm sure everything. Like I can only imagine once they start like showing more pictures and releasing stuff.
Yeah. One of the things that we've been doing on the trips is, like I said, we will catch a bunch of fish, take photos, take videos, and then put them back. So I'm working on like photo guides of the fish, because there's so many, like some of them don't even have a photo of them on the internet. And so like I've been taking a lot of photos and stuff, and I do when I'm there, I do a lot of swimming around with my phone in a case, and I just take videos of fish swimming. And it seems like depending on where I'm swimming, there's always like 5 or 6 things that I'm like, I have no idea what that is.
Really?
And I've seen a lot of fish, and I don't know what that is. And so like we actually have a good friend of mine is a fish taxonomist who specializes in piabas, which are the tetras and other like small characins. Yep. So he's been on the trip this year and last year, and he's like the world recognized like authority in taxonomy of characin. And so half of the fish that I send him that I don't know what they are, like, oh, that's an undescribed species that I'm working on describing with so and so, and it's like, oh, okay. So I didn't stand a chance of figuring out what that was because it doesn't exist yet.
Yep.
Scientifically, anyway, it doesn't exist. And so that was really cool to get to see fish before they're named even. And like so there's a species of Munchausia that we've seen on the trip a couple of years in a row that seem to be incredibly common, that he's working on describing right now. They look a lot like Munchausia coletti. And I have some in my tank. That's why I keep gesturing. But Munchausia coletti is like a really pretty kind of yellowish Munchausia with a reddish tail and like a really pretty eye, and like it's got a stripe on the belly that is it looks like a shadow. Like it's not a hard stripe. It's more like, it looks like if you were going to do a tattoo of a fish and they tried to put a drop shadow behind it and make it look like it was three-dimensional. It looks kind of like that. And so when the fish turns, you don't see it. But anyway, this new species looks exactly like Munchausia coletti, but has a stripe that runs the whole length of the belly instead of just half. So every time I'd see that fish, I'd be like, "Oh, new species!" and so also every time I see Munchausia coletti for sale, I'm like, "Is it, or is it the lookalike?" And so far, it's always coletti.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Undescribed species of fish. Oh my! Have you ever just found a new species out there on the journey?
Yeah. There's things that, well, they're all new to me, because I'm not
A native.
an expert by any. But there are definitely things that are being worked on right now. Several things actually, undescribed species of Munchausia. But they actually just recently reclassified a lot of those fish, so they probably won't be Munchausia anymore. And so like it's kind of complicated to keep up with. Like the paper came out this past summer, and so it's like now I have to learn new names for a lot of these fish.
Gotcha.
But it's all based on genetic analysis. That's like an evolving.
No, that's definitely really cool. I got my laptop to work, so I'm gonna go on my laptop now. I'm gonna swap this over real quick before it does that weird noise.
Too late. It's already echoing. Hi, everybody. If you just joined, I'm Jackie from Jay and I are in Fish Club together. So we're here just.
Hello. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Laptop makes life so much easier versus holding the phone at yourself for the last 10 minutes awkwardly.
Yeah. Yeah, sure does.
So there's. Oh, they redid this whole program. That's why it looks weird. Okay. Go to the chat. Oh, I guess we got some people in here. Hello, Jeff. Sorry about that. We got Joe here, Joe Ferraro. We got Gil's Fish Room showing up. All right, there's 8 other people currently. We're up to like 16 at one point already. Awesome. So today, like I said, we got Jackie here from Project Piaba. And you want to tell them a little bit about Project Piaba real quick? If they just came in.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So we're a completely volunteer-run nonprofit. So we're not funded by the government. We're not funded by any kind of industry or things like that. We rely entirely on donations and volunteers. So I don't get paid for any of the stuff that I do, and I pay for a lot of the stuff that I do. But so what we do is we don't buy fish, we don't sell fish, but we work to empower the local communities and make the fishery for wild caught fish from the Rio Negro region more competitive in a global market, because for decades, people have been fishing for species of fish that we're really used to keeping as fish keepers. So like cardinal tetras, rummy nose tetras, lots of cories, discus, lots of hatchet fish, things like that are really commonly kept aquarium fish that have been in the hobby since the 1950s. And for decades, wild caught from the Rio Negro was the only place where those fish would come from. But now those fish are available from many different sources, lots of farm-raised sources. But the thing is that for decades, when people were getting paid to fish for those fish, they were making a sustainable livelihood based on us buying the fish. They get the money for the fish, and a lot of those fish are actually really sensitive. So that was an economic incentive for them to protect habitat, because you can't have slash and burn farming, timber harvest, gold mining, and anything that's destructive for the rainforest happening in a place where the fishery is successful. So having people gainfully employed in a way that protects the habitat was really good for the environment. And it was actually really good for the fish too, because a lot of those species are boom and bust population cycles linked to the flooding and the receding of the river. So the Amazon in general, and particularly the Rio Negro, has a huge difference in seasonal water level changes. So like 40 or 50 feet, depending on the year. So the water will, the rivers flood and up into the trees where there's this huge expanse of habitat that's now flooded. And that's when those fish spawn. And then when the water levels go down, if those fish don't make it back into the river, they dry up and die in the forest. So it's a population that's built to have like seasonal booms and busts. So if the fish are caught right as those puddles are drying up, they don't count against next year's fish. So it's a highly sustainable fishery because of that, right? So most of those fish die if they're not caught. But if they are caught, it gives people a way to make a living that protects the habitat and prevents things like slash and burn farming, timber harvest, gold mining, and burning down the forest for other reasons. So it's a really good thing, but it's also really hard for it to compete in a global. But one of the biggest ones is a lot of people, think about when we were kids. It was like, oh, if that's from the wild, it must be bad for the environment. Like, so there's this built-in perception of badness with wild caught fish, but in this case, it's actually a direct driver of conservation. So it's kind of a marketing problem that the fish have now, where they have to compete against farm raised fish of the same species. But if you buy a fish from a farm, you're not putting your money back to the economy of the place where the people live in the rainforest. You're putting it into the economy of where that farm is, and most of them are someplace else in the world.
Okay.
So we do a lot of work with that to help, to help that compete in a global market. So it's part awareness, and it's part other things too. So like the other thing that makes wild fish more difficult to compete in the market is things like so we have this initiative that we've been working on for probably 15, 20 years now, called best handling practices. So for decades, people didn't have to compete with any other source of the fish. So there wasn't a whole lot of change that happened to the way that the fishing was happening, but a whole lot has changed in our understanding of fish health and biology and parasites and things like that, antibiotics, things like that. So one of the things that we learned, we sent a team of vets down to the Amazon to kind of follow the fish through the entire supply chain and identify points of weakness that could be improved to have a healthier fish come out of the supply chain at the other end. And it was little things like when you scoop a fish in a net, and the nets are sort of abrasive. They're harsh, abrasive, like mosquito mesh type net. And so when you scoop a fish in a net like that, and it goes flip flop flip on the mesh, it scrapes the mucus off of the fish, which we as fish keepers understand is a critical part of a fish's health and its ability to fight off bacterial infections and any kind of like things that get under its skin, literally. It needs that mucus to protect itself. So damaging the slime coat causes a lot of damage to that fish, but not necessarily immediately. It causes damage that happens weeks later, right? So like a fish takes a couple of weeks to succumb to a bacterial infection if its slime coat is damaged 2 weeks ago. So things like improving the handling of the fish, making it more gentle, making it more, completely underwater. So like scooping the fish instead of picking it up in the net, things like that have really improved the health of the fish through the supply chain, as well as high quality food, things like that have made a big difference in the health and competitiveness of the fish in the market. So that's what we do. And
so, that's awesome. You ready to do a tour?
Sure. Should I join my
It'd probably be easier on your phone, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Let me see if I can find the link that you sent me.
Anybody new right now? We have Jackie from Project Piaba. She also works at the aquarium, and she also keeps fish, and she's also collected fish out of the wild and released. Got more knowledge than probably anybody we know on here.
Well, I don't know about that. Very specific knowledge. All right, so let me just figure out. I should immediately mute myself here. So give me a second.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How about now? Do we still have the echo?
No, you're good.
Yay! Look at that. I figured something out. All right, so let me show you. Can I turn my screen around?
If turn it sideways, it'll go. I think you shut it off. Welcome back.
Okay. I guess I can't flip my screen. I thought I would be able to do that, but I guess I can't.
Oh, are you opposite? Is that better?
That's better, I guess. I was trying to have it the other way, but I guess I can try it this way. Let's see. Can you see my fish tank?
I can.
Okay, cool. There we go. So this is my 55-gallon tank. I intended this to be sort of like a Rio Negro exhibit, and right now it looks kind of junky right now. It's looked a lot better in the past. I have a fish that's got a fungal thing going on. Ignore him. But so what I wanted to do with this tank was have it look like some of the natural riverbank habitats that are really like sort of muddy riverbanks with dozens of species of fish right up in the mud and in the branches and the sticks and the things that are dry forest for half of the year. So I have actually probably my favorite fish in this tank right now are these guys, the watermelon tetras, Hemigrammus caeruleus. They're a beautiful fish that it took me a really long time to find those. And they grow really fast. And the cool thing about them is they're sort of a bland silver looking fish right now. But when I do a water change on this tank, those fish get like explosively red with like a blue tinge to the outside of the fins and black like dorsal fins. So they're gorgeous fish that I've really enjoyed keeping, and I've seen them a lot in Brazil. So that was pretty cool. So what I have tried to do with this tank is basically anytime I see fish available that I've seen in Brazil, I try to buy them and put them in this tank because I really like, collecting and keeping fish that I've seen in the wild before. So funny story with this fish. Can you see him in the back? That big Triportheus there looks kind of like the world's ugliest hatchet fish. Can you see it?
Not
in the back.
Well, you're a little cloudy on the distorted on my camera.
Uh-oh. It's tricky because I can't turn my screen around like I was hoping I'd be able to see it and film with the other camera, but it kept kicking me off. Well, anyway, that fish is a Triportheus. It's basically a very large species of hatchet fish. It's got no business being in a home aquarium. And I don't particularly like this fish or this species, but the funny story is that we had a exhibit at Super Zoo, and it was a large exhibit. It was huge. It was like a couple 100 gallons, and we had a couple of them in that exhibit, and they looked good in that exhibit. It was a nice big tank, and there were also a lot of these guys here. I'm not sure if you can see them. Those are Munchausia capae, and they're an interesting species of Munchausia. So at the end of the exhibit, I wanted a couple of those Munchausia, but it ended up being kind of a, like at the end of at the end of a fish show where everybody's like packing up, and it's kind of like a rugby scrum of trying to get everything packed up and get out of there. And so I was trying to have just the Munchausia, and this one Triportheus ended up in the bucket with them. And I didn't notice it until I got home, and I was like, oh no, I really just can't stand that fish. And there was one place on the trip to Brazil this year, there was one site that we stopped and were looking at fish in, and we pulled a beach seine, and it came up, and there was like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Triportheus, and I was like, oh my god, this species of fish is like my nemesis. But anyway, he's here, and he's pretty he's a fairly gregarious fish. He comes out often, and I see him a lot. Can you see my checkerboard cichlids?
I can't see nothing, Jackie. It's really
No. How about now? If I get further away?
I can't see anything on the live stream. Let me see if I could see on my YouTube, like YouTube itself, see if that's coming on different.
Yeah. Why does that look so bad?
It's completely just chopped. Are you on your Wi-Fi?
Yeah. Maybe I can pop off my Wi-Fi. Let me try that.
Hello, guys. Sorry for the quality. We're trying to work on it. Let me get Jackie back in here. Oh, wrong camera.
Is that's way better, huh?
Yeah, that's night and day difference. We can actually see.
Okay, cool. All right, it was the Wi-Fi. Sorry about that. Except now I can't. There it is. All right, now I can see it. So I can't really see what I was showing you. So anyway, here's my checkerboard cichlids. Those are a really neat little species of dwarf cichlid that I was really happy to find and have in this tank. So this tank, I built, this is one of those custom backgrounds. I gave a talk about it at Fish Club once, but it's like the spray foam and coconut fiber background to make it look sort of like a muddy riverbank. And it turned out really successful. Like it was beautiful when I first made it. Except there are a lot of Aspidoris in here, and they loved eating the coconut fiber off of it. So it's a lot more bland looking now. I guess the other thing that I would show you is that I had to build a lid for this tank because I have birds that live in the house with me, and they really like drinking fish tank water. And so I had to make a special lid that they couldn't get into. But what I'll show you, whoops, I forgot I had a bowl of water up there. What I'll show you that's actually really cool is I built this little extra tube here for the effluent for my canister filter, or for one of them. I have 3 canisters on this. But what it does is it drips like rain into the tank. And it's all like, I need to change the media right now, but it has like this really nice rain effect that the fish seem to like, because it's like really natural. And also in the tube, I have there's a pair of pantyhose full of peat moss in there that, so I can constantly dose this with black water, and it makes it like really like, so when I do water changes and stuff, I still have black water going in the tank, because of the peat tube situation. So that's pretty cool. And then here is my Aspidoris tank. So this tank looks like crap right now, but I don't want to touch anything with it because I have so many catfish breeding in here. But I have a whole ton of Aspidoris that are in here. And there's also some pygmy cories in here too. Cory pygmaeus.
Well, so how many Aspidoras do you think you have in there roughly?
If I had to guess, I'd say like 200.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. It's actually kind of disgusting. Like at night, like if the lights are out and I snap them on really fast, it's like, it's gross. but they're also really hard to catch out of there. So like I've brought them to Fish Club a couple of times and put them in the auction, and every time I do that, it takes me like an hour to catch a bag of 6. So I don't do that too often. I could probably just like put a trap in here and get them easier, but I usually like when I'm going to Fish Club, I'm usually like I don't think of that until it's time to go, and then I'm like, oh, next time. But anyway, there's so many of them, but they're cute little guys. I got these at CatCon in 2019, and I bought a bag of 6, and then had 500 of them. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, totally crazy.
It was a lot.
Yeah. But I tried to do some leaf litter and some driftwood and stuff in this tank to make it look more natural. And it came out pretty well. It's kind of hard to keep the glass clean because like with so much driftwood in there, like to just get my arms in to scrub is kind of a pain in the butt. But it's also fairly dim in here, and with the black water, I don't get a whole lot of algae. But when I do, it's always on the glass right where the wood is. It's really hard to get to. There's that Triportheus. Can you see him? Can you see him now with the better camera? Looks like the ugliest hatchet fish you've ever seen.
Oh, he's hiding in the back. Can't see him too well.
Yeah. Yeah, there's also a really nice discus in here that I also never see.
Is that the one from Chuck's line? Chuck's discus from back in the day?
No, it's actually one of I got it at one of the South Coast Tropical Fish Society auctions. So it's somebody from down there.
Oh, nice.
There's that Triportheus. I'm sure if I back away from the glass.
Oh, I see his big ass now.
But, yeah, he's kind of an ugly fish, but he lives here now. All right, so let's go and see some of the other stuff here. My hand kind of over most of the thing. So this is a new thing that I built this year. This is for my newts. So I have 2. Here he is. Here's one. Eastern red spotted newts that I've had since 2006, or actually from before then. They moved here with me when I moved here in 2006, and I had no idea that they lived for that long. And so I built them this new tank this winter, and it came out pretty nice. This is another one of those coconut fiber things. And I got some Liberty Mollies in there with them.
Did you say 2006?
Yeah.
That took me a little while to process.
Did you know that they lived that long? Yeah, they're old. These things could go to college if they wanted to.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing that I never thought that they lived that long, but I sort of wasn't paying attention to it, and then one day I was like, oh my gosh, these things moved here with me, and I've lived here since 2006. So, and they were adults at that point, so it's pretty fun to think about them living for that long.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never thought.
That's pretty cool. Here's this tank looks like crap right now. It's all overgrown and the glass is dirty, but I'm gonna rebuild this. This is one of my I had an old 55-gallon tank, and I took it out in the driveway to clean it, and I accidentally smashed one side in the driveway, and so then I built like a double. I figured, well, I'll take that broken piece of glass out, and I replaced it with screen, and so it's like a little screen door, and I have Vietnamese mossy frogs in here, which are really cool, except I never see them. They're like they're so cryptic, they just hide in here. But I know that they're in there because I hear them. They chirp all night, which is really cool. And then
I got a question for you, Jackie. Jeff was wondering, have you ever bred the checkerboard cichlids?
I have not, but I get a lot of breeding behavior from them. So they haven't actually done the deed, but I have, I've seen them going through the motions.
Okay. And Joe Ferraro wants to know, can he buy something off you? Joe, what do you want to buy?
Aspidorus? If you come here and catch them, sure.
You gotta go down to Weymouth and catch them. Weymouth, right?
Abington, same thing though. Right down the street. This tank, actually, I think I got this from you. You put this in a fish club auction. This is one of those 15-gallon column tanks.
Oh yeah, I had like 4 of them at one point. They're all brand new.
Yeah, you brought it to Fish Club brand new, and I bought it, and I regret nothing. But these are my bicolor poison dart frogs. They're Phyllobates bicolor, and so these are really cool. I actually love these frogs. But what I did with this tank, because I got it from you at Fish Club, I didn't spend a lot of money on it. Actually, it was like dirt cheap for what this tank is.
Like $30, I think.
Yeah, $30. But anyway, it was crazy because when you brought this to Fish Club, it was like I had looked at it at Petco that day, and it was like $150 for full price, and I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. But anyway, what I ended up doing was I drilled the bottom of the tank. Not sure if you can see this; it's dark. Put my flashlight on it. Oh, spiders! You like my spiders?
Ooh, pretty.
Yeah. So I drilled the tank and I put like a little standpipe in there for a little water feature. And there's like a I got this thing from Russ. It's like a food safe water jug. And so I put like a little pump in there, and I've got like a constant water feature, so it just dribbles and keeps the moss alive, and drips into like a little pond for them. And these frogs have been spawning, but I only got one batch of eggs off of them. And then normally when I breed frogs like this, I will I'll pull the eggs out and grow them in like a separate little cup with a lid. And when I pulled the eggs for these guys, I couldn't find the cup that I like to use for eggs. And so I used one that I normally use for tadpoles. And it's got like a different kind of lid on it, and it lets a little bit too much airflow out, and they dried up, and unfortunately I lost those eggs. But they chirp all the time, and they go through the motions of breeding, so I'm pretty confident that I'll have more eggs soon.
Awesome. Now, what do you feed the dart frogs? I've always heard they only eat like fruit flies and stuff, and that's why I've never done them.
Yeah, I feed fruit flies, and I also do a lot of springtails, which are like the little hoppers that you see in the snow. Yeah, they will eat isopods too, but isopods are too expensive and they breed kind of slow. So I did put isopods in this tank when I first built it, but I don't have them as they're more like a cleanup crew that stays pretty well buried under the leaf litter. But the fruit flies, I will say that's the one barrier for keeping dart frogs, is that you have to be willing to grow fruit flies in your house, and then they always escape. And so there's always like every time, there's a fruit fly in my beer every time. And so that happens. But also like it's really hard in the winter because the fruit fly production is really temperature dependent. So actually the place where I do it is up on the top of this tank. The light gives it just enough warmth that I can actually keep them on this. But literally every time I go to Brazil, my fly cultures crash, and then I end up having to do something else. So like here I have my these are all springtails, so like the little hoppers are much easier to grow. So I just have this kind of janky rack full of little hoppers that I'm growing for my frogs, and that's kind of cool. Oh, I should show you this. This is new and different. Here is my pink-toe tarantula, and ignore this weird pile of stuff here. I found a dubia roach in with the cup that she came in, and it's too big for her to eat now. Can you see that? Because I can't see my screen at all. But she's got a little nest there, little web. So she spends most of her time up in that web. I gave her a cricket the other day, and she came out and took it from my hands, but she spends a lot of time hidden up in there. She did molt recently, so there's a molt in there. That's actually the toes of the molt, which was pretty cool. And this is a species. So I wanted I wanted to keep a pink-toed tarantula because I had seen them. Another thing that I've seen in Brazil often, and always been like, oh, that'd be kind of a cool pet. So I wanted to keep them for that reason. Here's another cool species of frog that I have. These are Ranidomya benedicta, the blessed poison dart frog. They're thumbnail frogs, so that's as big as they get. Can you see them?
No, I just see your finger. Can you zoom in?
Right behind my finger. Actually, I don't. Can I zoom in?
I don't think you can zoom in on the app.
I
You
can
can
get
put the camera closer.
Okay, put the camera closer. We'll try that. Problem is I can't see the camera, so I'm totally guessing.
Oh, you can
Maybe what I'll
flip
do
the screen
here.
around.
I tried that and it kept kicking me
All right,
off.
so you got to go to what is it? Settings, I believe. Click.
Nope, that did not work.
Don't hit X's. X's are no good on this app.
Okay. I didn't hit the X. I hit the little round thing that looks like on the iPhone when you switch the camera around.
Oh, do you see the camera button on there?
I do.
All right, click on that.
Okay.
Does it say face camera back?
Ooh, back camera. Let's try that.
Then hit the back button. Don't hit the X button.
Okay. Hey, that worked. This would have been way easier.
Oh,
anyway,
absolutely.
way easier. So those are the bicolors that I just showed you. And here's
Whole
my
new world.
Yeah, totally. So I was just going to take the lid off and show you these frogs. So there, you see a little spot of red. I'll put my flashlight on him. He's probably going to hop. There's two
They're
there,
tiny,
actually.
tiny, huh?
Yeah, they're real small. They're thumbnail dart frogs, so you could literally fit them on your thumbnail. But here's something that's really cool. I did find some eggs the other. Oh, here's this one's ready to jump out. See him? Whoop.
Oh, they're pretty.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They've got kind of like a Mask of Zorro type eye mask.
Yeah.
I'm gonna actually close the lid because he's really close to the top of the lid. But they I noticed the other day that they have eggs up in that top corner there, which is really exciting. So there's one. Can you see him?
Yeah.
Bright red.
Yep.
So this was it took me forever to find these frogs because there are not very many of them for sale anywhere. And they actually let me consult my thing here. They are from the lowland rainforests of Peru. And they have been imported into the U.S. a couple of times. And so I actually ended up getting these things from Sure Thing Exotics in Pittsburgh. But other than that, there's a guy in Canada that breeds them. And these frogs, they're not hard to breed, but I have a heck of a time raising them. And I've talked to a couple of other people who work at public aquariums that have tried breeding them. And they can't, like the frogs breed, the eggs hatch, the tadpoles morph into frogs, they grow for about a month, and then they die. And it's got to be some kind of nutritional thing that those frogs need at that size that's hard to meet. But they only breed like once a year, so I haven't gotten that many chances. So hopefully soon.
Wow, so that'd be a big breakthrough if you get them to breed to be beating the zoos, pretty much.
Yeah, for sure.
That's pretty cool. That's something I always want to do too. Just breed something that's never been bred before.
Yeah, and like I said, Paul Shore breeds them and breeds them quite successfully. But breeding them is not the problem. It's getting the frogs.
Raising the frogs.
Yeah. Here's my.
1 second, Jackie. Into the Future says hi. We're gonna go through the chat real quick.
Sure.
Into the Future. We got Into the Future here. Elaine says hi. She says banana peels and squash skin grow fruit flies and gnats like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Into the Future says it really does look like a mask. Yeah, no. Okay. All right, yeah, continue on.
Sure. So here's my shell dwellers. This tank, this is one of the first like custom backgrounds I ever built. It doesn't look great because it didn't. This one is probably about 20 years old, so it kind of looks a little drab to me right now. Um, it's fiberglass, so I actually did like glass and resin and everything on there. And this is not ideal for shell dwellers. They like more, long space than tall
Yeah.
space. But when I got these guys, it was only like a couple of them, and then they've been breeding like crazy. So I'm like, all right, now I need to I need to get rid of them. And I actually have organized a trade with a friend of mine who's going to take all the multis from me, but we haven't met up to do it yet. So I still have those.
Nice.
This is a cool tank. I really just like the color of the black water in this tank. Um, there's a
I
couple
agree.
of there's a couple of wood-eating catfish in here that have really done a number on the driftwood. I've got some cardinal tetras, and there are some, what are they called? I keep forgetting the name of this fish. Axelrodia in here. Oh, there's one in the back underneath that cardinal in the very, very back. Bright red, pretty little itty bitty fish. So small, like less than a half an inch long for a
Well, they're
reproductive adult.
Rasbora, right? Actually, Rhode Eyes.
They look like rasboras. They're like the South America equivalent of rasboras.
Okay. I'm just brain farting right now in my head.
They look exactly like rasboras though. But they're really cute. And so this tank could use some love. It kind of got a little bit, like I said, the catfish have been eating that driftwood. Normally it's a lot more tangled in there, which looks pretty nice when it's full.
Yep.
So let's try over here. There we go. There's my. I built this tank I found on the side of the road, um, and it's actually a really cool. It's one of those 30-gallon cubes. So it's like a really cool, like a really expensive tank that I found, and I built like a stand for it. And so I have dart frogs in here too. I've got some Azurius. These are Tinctorius dart frogs. I've got Tinctorius and Azurius, and there's a little waterfall situation in there too. This tank is like way overgrown, and I just dumped one of my fly cultures in there. There were still a couple flies living in it when I was cleaning out the buckets, so I just put the whole thing in there. So it's kind of gross right now, but but such is life with frogs.
No, it looks cool in there. So can we see the frogs they all hiding right now?
Yeah, there's a couple that see the blue ones
Oh, I
right
see
there.
him.
Yep.
The blue guy.
Yep. And little tank right there.
Now, have you successfully got any? I keep wanting to say fry because I'm used to fish. What do you call baby frogs?
Froglets. Yeah,
Froglets.
yeah, froglets. Not with these ones. No, the only ones that I've successfully gotten froglets was the Benedicta. And like I said, I haven't been able to raise them.
Gotcha.
These ones, they're somewhat slow growing. Like I've had these ones. This one I bought at the beginning of this past spring, or this spring of 2024, and he's still very small, so they take a while to grow up. But I do see breeding activity, and they sing and stuff. Can you see that one? That one's like posing. It's like a fly sitting right there that he's staring at.
Shit.
But the the internet has a tendency to come for you if you keep more than one species of frog in the same exhibit.
You have to come through for anything. I feel like you can't do anything.
They sure do. Yeah, they sure do. But all three of these species all live in. They have similar temperature requirements. They have similar, like everything about their habitat, humidity, temperature, etc., is all the same. And the reason that he just got a fly there. The reason that they hate that is because they could hybridize, and then you end up with bad frogs. But like I said, I'm really not raising these ones or breeding them or intending to keep any hybrid tadpoles. So I'm not really worried about that. And this is also how the aquarium keeps their species of frogs, these same species together. So I do know that you can do it successfully with these 3 species. I certainly wouldn't recommend keeping any other mixes together, but
All right.
these ones seem okay.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Considering you've been to Brazil so many times and stuff,
Yeah.
do you see natural hybridization out in the wild?
Actually, we had an argument about that this year. We had a creek that had what were those fish? We had a creek that had Aquidens pallidus in it, and also chocolate cichlids, Hypsilocara coryphaenoides. And those 2 species, they're similarly sized cichlids, but there were a couple of the Aquidens that were just totally weird looking. Like they had like a broken, like looked like they had a saddle on them. Just totally weird markings, and they were shaped kind of strange. And they were also hanging out with chocolate cichlids. So we were like, could those be hybrids? I don't know. It didn't seem very likely that they would have done that, but they were hanging out together. And so, after a whole lot of argument, we decided that you would never know if you were looking at a hybrid unless you did like a DNA thing with it.
Well, that's the one thing I've always wondered. Has there always been like new hybrid fish, and they always just thought of the new species discovered, but in all reality, it's just a hybrid?
Yeah, well, they can sort that out pretty quickly with some of the genetic stuff that they can do right now. So like that, and actually the genetics, the DNA analysis is totally changing the taxonomy of so many species of fish. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Take a look at these guys again.
Hi, Ben. Ben's here.
Hi, Ben. There's the other one. So the other thing that I'll point out is that these eastern red-spotted newts, because they're a native species, different states have different regulations about keeping them. So don't just go out and catch them. But Massachusetts, you're allowed to keep 2, and that's exactly what I have.
She only has 2, so you can't come and see their fish.
Yeah, don't come for me. But
and they're ancient.
Here's the other. They've like I said, they've lived together since before 2006.
Well, they look pretty healthy for their age too. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I thought they'd be more not lethargic, but kind of like lazy,
gnarly looking. Yeah, they've actually. So I never kept these with fish. I like when I built this new tank for them, which I did this winter. I put it in place on Christmas Eve. That was kind of exciting. Or not Christmas Eve, but Christmas week. I remember because Polar Express was playing on TV. But while I was setting this tank up, I put them in there, and because it was a relatively new tank, and I didn't I put new sand and new plants and new everything, so it didn't really cycle that great. And they're kind of gross. Like they poop a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on in this tank. And I got kind of like a biofilm situation growing on the wood that I put in there. And so I was like, oh man, I really need to put like some little fish in here as like a cleanup crew. And somebody at Fish Club had these Liberty Mollies, and I was like, oh, those are great because I think they're too big for them to eat, but they're also not big enough to eat them. So like I really wanted to be careful. Like I didn't want anything to like bite their tails or whatever. And I also didn't want them like, I didn't want any eating going on in this tank.
Gotcha.
other than the mung growing on the plants. But so far, so good. They seem, the fish seem happy and healthy, and the newts seem happy and healthy. So that makes me happy. But
I agree. They look great.
Yeah, there's a little pump hidden behind that rock that all it does is drip, so it keeps the moss alive. But that was kind of tricky actually, was getting the pump to pump just the right amount of water, because I wanted like a little waterfall, but the pump was like either it had 2 settings, which were this, which you can't even see it dripping, but it stays damp, or like raging torrent, which was just crazy. So I got rid of that, and it's just the drip.
That makes sense. Well, but you did a good job, though. You get the moss to grow. It looks good.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I was hoping that I'd be able to keep some ferns or something in the pots, but it doesn't wick the moisture up like I hoped it would. So I have a dead plant situation going on in the dry part, um, but I might throw some moss in there or something instead. But I'm pretty happy with how that tank turned out. That's how that coconut fiber background stuff looks when you don't have catfish eating the coconut fiber off of it.
Gotcha.
So
Looks good. I like the top of the background. You made use out of it.
yeah, I was trying. And then this tank, this is just a terrible overgrown plant. I put my white cloud minnows in from my tub this summer. They'll probably go back outside when I set the tub up. But this tank, this used to be the newts tank, but when I redid it, everybody got an upgrade. Right now, it's totally overgrown with salvinia, but that'll all go into the tub this summer.
Yeah, looks good.
There's Penny. Where you
Oh,
going?
you got people running around the house?
Yep. Actually, I have a few. There's Girly Bird.
That's awesome. I wish they didn't shit so big and everywhere.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible. It's terrible. There, that was another reason for putting the lid on on the 55 in the kitchen. I figured I'd show you this again now that I have figured out the back camera situation here, so it'll be easier for me to show you. There's that Triportheus. Again, world's ugliest hatchet fish.
Oh, he's cool. I like him.
He is cool. I just have a personal vendetta against Triportheus.
If you want, you throw him in my fish tank.
Yeah, they're really because they're basically a giant hatchet fish. They are like experts at leaping out of people's tanks. So like that's another bonus of having the special pigeon proof lid is that it's also Triportheus proof. He can't jump out of there, so that's why I've had him for so long.
Yeah, he looks like he's about what, 4 inches? He looks huge, maybe 5.
He is huge. Yeah, he'd fit in my hand, but not with a lot of extra space.
Okay, so about 5 inches, maybe bigger.
Yeah, probably. There he is. Whoop. Yeah, I was a little worried that he would bully everybody in there, but he seems to mostly behave himself. They can get kind of nippy if you have like a whole school of them.
Yeah, it's pretty cool though. It's something different. I never seen them before.
Yeah, we used to have them a million years ago at the aquarium. We had a bunch of them in one of the tanks. Unfortunately, they sort of petered out, but they're cool. And like that was a 1,500 gallon exhibit.
Yeah.
So like they're cool in that. I'm not sure about a 55 gallon tank in your kitchen.
Makes sense.
A little bit oversized. But here's the Aspidorus are all out and about.
Oh, now we can see them great.
Yeah. It's way better when you can see them, huh?
Yep.
But this rock is actually pretty much the only place where I can catch them in this tank. Is if I have to like wait there, like I don't know, like a ninja. Like I'll put a net in the water and I'll stand there and hold it.
No, I believe it. You get so much coverage; it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. But that's what they spawn in. They spawn like in the cracks in the rocks, and they spawn in the grass and stuff. And I used to have a lot of pennywort in here, and they were spawning like crazy in that. Except unfortunately, I had too many of them at one time, and the pennywort like completely covered the surface. And I do think that they go up in there, like a lot of those other gastrodermis and cories, that they'll go up and gulp air, and with too much stuff over the surface, they weren't able to do that, and so I lost a bunch. I had a big die off in this tank, and I think that's what it was. So I took all of those floating plants out. I left the Java moss, but that's about it. And there's a couple of pygmy cories in here too. I think that's what that one is.
Yeah. Do they spawn in there too?
Yeah, I hope so. I've seen spawning behavior, but I haven't gotten any babies yet.
Doors are probably eating them.
Yeah, probably. They're terrible. But I had to add I bought these sponges online on Amazon, and they're way better than the old situation that I used to do, which was to kind of rubber band some filter floss over my filter intakes, because I had so many catfish that I would just get in the canisters when I'd go to clean the canisters.
Yeah.
And so I hate that. So I did buy those sponges. They were like $6. Totally worth it. So if anybody is looking for suggestions, so I just I take them out and I clean them, and then after I clean them, I just put them in a cup and have them ready to go. But these things are great because they come with a hole in them already. So much easier, like totally worth the $6.
No, it's pretty nice. I use them for my overflow systems. I'll put them on so the fry don't get caught up.
Yeah, they work great for that. There's a pencilfish. Yeah, this tank looked great when I first, when I have a little bit more. I've been pretty busy since I came back from Brazil, so I really haven't had a lot of time to like devote to it, and I wish I did, because it looks great when it's like, when it's well maintained. Right now, it's just kind of like I feed the fish, I clean the glass, and that's it. I do water changes, but if I have time to tinker with it, it's awesome. There's some of those Moncauzia over in the corner there.
So Moncauzia are what, a tetra technically, right?
Yeah, they're a Kerrison. Yep, they're a tetra. But there's, like I said, there's 94 described species.
Yeah.
And a lot more coming soon. But this piece of driftwood that's in here actually was it was a tree that a friend of mine knocked down with an excavator, because why cut a tree down when you can knock it over? And after he knocked it down, the roots popped up, and that's what this was. And when I first put this in the tank, it was gorgeous. Like there was so much more root attached to it.
Yep.
And I soaked it in a barrel in the driveway for like 6 months. But when I put it in here, it was beautiful. Except the catfish have been eating it ever since. And so like you actually can't even see these things in there. But when I built the tank, let's see if I can get you to see it. There's like some tubes in the back. So behind that checkerboard cichlid, you'll see there's a tube. I built the tubes into the back wall of the tank because I wanted to keep, at the time I was keeping like a crap load of Aspidoris, and I wanted them to have enough space without necessarily taking it from the sand, because I had a lot of things that like to dig in the sand. So I was like, if I could get them to cave in the back wall. So I built these things. It's a reflection off of my back of my phone. But I built these caves into the back wall of the tank, and the fish love them. Unfortunately, though, I had one get trapped in there, so I had to take I built like these inserts that slide in, so that you have there was a tube, and then another tube slides in. So like if I wanted to pull eggs or something like that, I could do that easily. But the inside tube was a little too small, and I had one get trapped, and that was terrible. So I took the inside tubes out.
Gotcha.
So now I can't take any eggs out, even if I wanted to. It's impossible to catch any fish out of this tank.
I believe it. I believe it.
Here's that's one of the watermelon tetras there. There's a lot of reflection on the glass here, but when that fish gets all jazzed up, it is like so red. It's like Coca-Cola can red.
Really?
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think what's awesome, I really like the checkerboards in there too. They look great.
Yeah, I love the checkerboards. They're one of my favorite dwarf cichlids. They're not my favorite, but they're like probably close second to Biotheca supercularis.
Yep. Yeah, they look awesome in there.
Yeah.
Well, I got a question for you. Do you think we'll ever see fish from Brazil in the near future hitting here from Project Piaba?
Yes, actually, we're working on a traceability program right now, and we're working with a number of exporters that we have. We have fish in the pipeline right now that are undergoing an additional conditioning period at the exporters. So they're being fed, they're being fattened, and they're making their way through the supply chain. And those fish are going to be available fairly soon. But unfortunately, there's a lot of we'll call it red tape in Brazil. That so the agency that inspects fish before they get shipped out is they went on strike last year, and they went on strike for a very long time, and that sort of made it very difficult. Like, so no fish were getting out during the strike, but before they went on strike, they kind of like quiet quit. Like they would take as long as possible to do the paperwork. They would nitpick every little piece of the paperwork apart and made it so that it was really hard to get any shipments out.
So it's like a political type of thing they're doing.
Yeah, well, it was kind of they went on strike for a lot of the same reasons why you would imagine people going on strike. There was, they wanted higher pay, they wanted more people to be able to do the job. They felt like they were underpaid and overworked, and they were. But because of that, it all but stopped exports of fish out of Brazil, which was terrible because so many people's livelihoods depend on it, not just the fishermen, but the exporters and all the people who ship the fish and everything like that. Really just kind of ground everything down to a halt. But with them coming off strike, and also the other thing that happened is they closed a lot of the inspection facilities. So Manaus is where most of these fish, so everything Rio Negro goes through Manaus. But when they closed the Manaus, now doesn't have any federal inspectors. It's just 3 airports, and none of them are near Manaus. So it adds an extra day in the box because those fish get shipped somewhere else, inspected there, and then shipped out internationally, which is a big problem for box time, but also for it's also a problem for a whole lot of reasons. It makes the freight twice as much, and things like that. So it's really hard to compete. So we're working on fixing those kind of things, and until those things get fixed, we're working on working within that system, which is going to involve having people who are good at the paperwork, helping with the paperwork, things like that. So one of the things, so we work with a fishermen's cooperative in Barcelos, which is where it's like a hub where the fish go before they get shipped down the river to Manaus. And there's a fishermen's cooperative there called Orna Pesca. We hired lawyers for them last year to help sort out a paperwork situation that they had. So it's not all just glamorous fish stuff. A lot of times it's lawyers and paperwork.
So you guys are doing a lot of dirty work too to kind of get things cleaned up, to get these help to the villages out, pretty much.
Yeah, because if you think about it, it's if you take away somebody's way of making a living, they, those people don't stop living just because you can't export fish anymore. They've got to do something. And so it turns out to, it turns into a thing where it's like a race to get everything figured out before people start moving into different ways of making a living, which unfortunately is happening at an alarming rate. But we're doing what we can, and we hope to have it turned around by this fall. We actually have a huge media release planned, and a lot of like coordinated efforts of fish coming in and additional conditioning and quarantine, and it's going to be a big thing. I'm really excited about it.
It's going to be huge. That's exciting to actually hear that Brazil's going to finally open up and start sending fish out again.
Yeah, and the fish are coming out now because that strike is over, but they're dribbling out. It's every once in a while fish get out, but it's gotta, like I said, we're working on the paperwork and the laws and stuff to make it easier and more competitive, because that's another way that Brazil is losing out on economic share. So because the same species of fish are available from places in Indonesia that are really good at supply chains, and freight is cheap and things like that, they can ship fish out quicker and faster and easier and cheaper. So closing closing the inspection stations in Brazil really had the effect of really ramping up the fish production elsewhere, which is a big deal because now they're winning in the market, and now Brazil has to fight its way back in. So we're doing everything that we can to help that happen, but it's hard.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it is. Brazil's a huge country on top of it all.
Yeah.
And I feel like Asia's killing it when it comes to fish.
Yeah.
But they make a lot of money too. Like those beta people, I feel like that's a lot of people's livelihood is breeding betas in Indonesia and stuff like that.
Yeah. There's a lot of fish business there, which is, it's good. It's got a place in the market, but we're just trying to help the Brazilian fish be competitive because it's the same biostock, same species. And I feel like it's not fair for them to lose the way of making a living that they've had for decades because of some external market force. If there's anything that we can do about it, we should. So, and it's a big deal too. Like when you think about it, like the fish trade and the pet trade, and like we talked about earlier, there's a lot of haters on the internet. And the fish trade in particular has a lot of haters to it. And here's a clear example of our direct involvement in the aquarium hobby, right? The fish business, the fish industry is, billions of dollars. And the money that goes into the economy in biologically important areas where these fish come from in the Rio Negro is a mind-blowingly large amount of money that there's no government agency or conservation organization, nothing writes checks that big except for the aquarium fish industry. So, like the amount of money that we are spending and sending back to this area of Brazil is really the biggest driver of conservation in that region. So without it, it's really scary to think about what would happen. But paying people to fish is a lot better than paying people to cut down the rainforest.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So, and especially if the fish are doomed anyway, it's really
a last-ditch effort to save the fish pretty much at that point.
Yeah. They don't count against next year's population of fish because of the way that their population cycles work.
Yeah. Do you think people will take advantage of that in the future, though?
I hope so. Yeah.
I don't think they'll start going in the wild and start ripping them out in mass populations.
No, it's not even really possible. Because the way that the habitat works, it's so this tank is a fairly accurate representation of what the habitat looks like in the flooded forest. And when the water, when that's under 40 feet of water, it's impossible. Like you can't drag a seine net through it. You can't, I suppose you could blow it up and dynamite fish like they do in Vietnam, but
drop some cyanide.
Yeah, you could probably do that, but then you would not have those fish next year. Because they're so delicate, they don't tolerate any kind of damage to the habitat like that. So the basically choosing to have the fish year after year kind of prevents things like that from happening. And there's no way to massively catch them. Like they're catching them by hand with nets and occasionally with traps. But the traps even are like they're things that are about as tall as me. And they've got like a slit cut in them, and they put like a little piece of meat in there. The fish swim in, they catch them, and if they catch something that they don't want, blop, it just goes right back in the river right there. Like it's not like here when you think about cod fishing or something like that, where everything gets where there's a lot of damage to the bycatch. Here, bycatch gets caught and put right back in the river, right where it came from, without hurting it.
Nice.
So everybody wins.
That's smart. Jeff said it was nice to meet you. So I guess we're gonna we'll probably wrap it up now, Jackie. It's been a little over an hour. I appreciate you doing this.
No
all
problem.
Right.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Just yet. Thank you guys all for watching. have a great night. And then I'm going to shut this live stream down if I can just find out how, because they had to update everything as always. And stream 1 second. Thank you, guys.